Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Painless Universal, a conversation with myself and Welsh. Today, I'm really excited to talk about the food pain. We forget that so many people are in pain because they don't have enough food to eat, but yet there's so much wastage. So I'll be talking to Chef Elijah Ado about this critical problem. Chef Elijah's journey as a chef started in Nigeria, Lagos, and he'll be telling us about his journey, how he found that passion within himself to be not just a chef, but also to go on to helping others. He met a mentally challenged man who gave him that big inspiration that it's not about what you know, but it's about how you are vulnerable and how you're helping others who are also vulnerable to live a better life, to give them something that you yourself has always wanted, but you just didn't know how to do it. And through meeting this mentally challenged guy, he started Food for All Africa, feeding the Africans, feeding people in Ghana, rather than wasting food. But he didn't stop there. He started with this is his non-profit organization. He started working with various stakeholders, to restaurant owners, supermarket, food distribution companies, farmers, to engage with them to see how they could all work together and limit their wastage, and rather than just wasting these food products, give them to people who are really in need. He's working with the government, private sector on a policy to see how this could be incorporated into national policy. I can't wait to meet him because his work goes beyond him. To date, his organization, Food for All Africa, has recovered between 8,000 to 10,000 worth of food annually to support over 5,000 beneficiaries across Ghana. And his work has not just stopped there. He's been recognized and awarded by the Queen's Young Leaders Award by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II at Buckingham's Palace. With all his work, we have to meet him because we need to understand how he's doing this and why he found this passion within himself to give back to others. Meet Chef Elijah Ado. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Painless Universal, a conversation with myself and Welsh. I have Chef Elijah Ado, based in Ghana, and I tell you, his work is truly amazing. As I said in my introduction, I talked a bit about his work. His work is truly amazing, and not just what he does is so good, but also the way he came up with that concept. Thank you so much, Chef Elijah, for joining us. How is Ghana today?
Ghana is amazing. We, as just like any other country now, trying to overcome the COVID pandemic. We have been trying our possible best since January. The cases for the second wave have kept increasing. The cases have kept increasing, and which for us is becoming worrisome. And the fact that our government also is saying that our kids should go to school, as parents, we have become a bit more worried. But just like any other country, faced with it to survive.
Yes. Now, Chef Elijah, I think one of the things that really struck me with your work is the fact that you are feeding so many people. You started an organization. But before we start into that, dive into that organization which you've started, I want you to understand a little bit about what led you, where did the passion come from about being a chef? Because I saw your story, but I know it coming from you is always beautiful. Where did that passion come from to become a chef?
Well, growing up, I basically wanted to become a doctor, a medical doctor. As the only boy, that was my childhood ambition. But I've ended up as a doctor in the kitchen. So I always tell people, as a chef, I'm a doctor in the kitchen. And I remember very well that as the only boy among three girls, anytime my mom cooks at home, I'm the first to ever taste the food. My mom would always be like, Elijah, what do you think about the taste? What do you think about the taste? At age 10, 11, unfortunately, I lost my mom. And considering how close I was to her, it really affected me as a teenager back then. And it was quite a difficult moment for me in that part of my life. The only way I was able to overcome it was to find strength in the moments that I spent with her. And among those moments, I believe the one I cherished most inwardly was the ones we spent in the kitchen.
Oh,
So after school, when I had to think about what I want to do with the rest of my life, knowing to the fact that she will be very proud of me finding strength in those moments we spent in the kitchen, I basically was able to pick up passion for cooking very easy. And I believe because that is how come also to food, because back then as a kid, I always end up being happy food before my dad tastes it. And so that was how I ended up as a chef.
oh my goodness, that's wonderful. I mean, it's always good to have fond memories of our mother, especially when they've passed on, and that's a good thing that has led you also not to just remember her, but also lead on to do great things. You also talk about a story when you were in Nigeria, and you went on in when you were in Nigeria, you were helping out as a cleaner when you started from humble beginnings. And during that time, you threw out olive oil. Could you tell us about that story? Because that really changed your life as well. That was also part of your growth. What happened then?
Yes, so psychologically, after I lost my mom, psychologically, I was, as a teenager, I was greatly affected. I could be there and then lose touch with reality. It was a very distressful moment of my teenage years. And at a point, my grandmother decided that the best way I could be able to overcome was for me to change environment. So I had to go and stay with my mom's only surviving sister, who happens to be in Nigeria with their family back then. So whilst there, I was schooling at about 11, 12, 13 years, I was schooling. But the schooling system in Nigeria is such that the population size is huge. So about 100 to 200 students to one teacher. And so most often than not, it's more being practical, difficult to take care of my younger sisters. So that pushed me to pick up a job as a kitchen cleaner in a restaurant. So after school, what I did was I go to the restaurant to work as a kitchen cleaner. I was just a young man wanting to make sure that I prove to my late parents that I will be able to stand my feet, even at that age, to help in the upkeep of my younger sisters. So I took up a job as in that restaurant, and after school, I'll go cleaning. But one day, we were preparing to run operation. I had to go to work. It was a Sunday. Monday, we have our first exam papers to write. And so I was in a hurry to go home. Then I had to, as a kitchen cleaner, I had to make sure before I leave home, I clean all the pots, all the cooking pots, all the utensils before I go home. So in that hurry, I took up a pot that contained a sauce and then threw away, started washing it. Whilst doing the washing, the chef came in. This was a well-built chef who walked in angrily and started shouting, "Why did you take the pot of sauce and throw away?" He got so furious at me, started throwing plates and then spoons at me. And at that moment, I was confused. So out of the confusion, I started crying. I started crying. Then all of a sudden, I busted out by saying, "Do you think I'll be here cleaning whilst my colleagues are at home preparing for their school exams?" if my mom was to be alive, do you think I would be here doing dishwashing at my age? And so when I made that statement, apparently it struck the chef because he had also lost his parents at a younger age. And so that made him start thinking about the purpose for which I was in the kitchen. She realized I wasn't there because of just my own free will, but it was the conditions at that critical moment that made me to be there. So it took me as a mentee. He started supporting me, opening up his kitchen for me. And even he was one of the key people who actually supported my culinary education after school when I wasn't so sure of what I want to do with my life. He was one of the key people who gave me that foundation to build on that passion, to build on that connection with my late mom, to become the best at what I do as a chef.
Oh my goodness, that is such a beautiful story. I mean, it's so funny. Out of this hardship you found, and you just opening up to him, he found that compassion to help you in what you were doing. Um, I really have to ask you. You went back to Ghana, and when you during your trip to Ghana, one of the things that led you to start Food for All Africa was because of the a side beggar you saw on the streets, and his desperate need for food and where he was getting the food. Could you just tell us a little bit what led that to what did you see on that day that made you say I need to create this Food for All Africa?
Yes, so after I completed school, I was working as a young chef and took up a job in a hotel in Ghana. And that hotel was quite close to a bridge in the capital of Accra. So any time I'm coming to work in the morning, I see this mentally challenged man handing out bags containing food to his colleague mentally challenged under that bridge on the road. And other occasions, I see the same man walking into our hotel where we keep our trash, picking up all the leftover foods we throw into the trash bin, and then putting it into bags. So it turned out he was actually going around hotels and restaurants. And I asked him why he does that. Doesn't he think that could result in people getting sick? His response to me was, if he doesn't do it, who will? And I felt a mentally challenged person asking me if he doesn't ensure that his vulnerable colleagues on the street get food, who was going to do that? At that moment, it didn't mean so much to me, but at a point after some months, I realized it meant a lot. All I could, there's just a small action I could do to ensure that the food that he gives out to people, which he picks from our hotel, will not be contaminated. So I spoke to the boss and told him, if we can, instead of throwing away that leftover food from our buffet, for him to come and pick it.
Mm.
We can put it in the bags for him to pick it and then go and give it out, which my boss accepted. And so I started from our hotel. So I spoke to other chefs who as well bought into the idea that instead of we throwing away the leftover food from our kitchens, we could connect it to the vulnerable in society. So 20 we were doing as at that time as chefs from different hotels and restaurants was we were connecting all excess foods from our kitchens to vulnerable communities and then orphanages. We were also connecting to the main mentally challenged man who inspired us. Then I realized food waste was not limited to just the hospitality sector. My suppliers were also having the same challenge. Businesses within the food supply chain was actually having to battle with the issue of food waste. So at a point, my interest in cooking for people within the hotel and the restaurant setting was quite diminishing, and the interest was more growing towards getting food for vulnerable people. So somewhere in 2015, I decided with a group of young people to start a former well-known organization with structures that will be connecting excess food within the supply chain to vulnerable people, especially children, aged, and then the vulnerable in society.
I mean,
And that was how we came about Food for Africa.
that's really, truly amazing because honestly, you are working with supermarkets, you're working with restaurant owners, you're working with food distributor companies, farmers, and you are connecting all of this and you're becoming an advocate, making trying to change policy. How is that going with the regards to policy of the food chain? Because I know in Ghana, around 46% of food is all currently being gone towards wasted, and people don't think much of it when they waste the food, not knowing that there's so many people who could utilize that. How is that going?
Initially, it was quite challenging getting other stakeholders, especially the public stakeholders, to get to the understanding that there's a way we could help society if only we can put policies and structures in place that would ensure that the excess food within the supply chain can be connected and distributed to those who don't have purchasing power. The inefficiencies within our food supply chain is so much that we needed to let stakeholders, the public sector, see the real picture. So we took on advocacy. In somewhere 2015, 2016, we actually had to go as far as creating awareness on the economic environmental impact of food waste in Ghana, where we attempted a Guinness World Record for the longest charity feeding table. And we were recovering all the food which was being served on that dinner table. Unfortunately, we couldn't break the record, but it gave us some leverage to send out that message. So we had a committee made up of parliament, made up of our stakeholders within the food supply chain. And we started working on a national food donors encouragement policy. It is issues of policies are very, very difficult to come by in Ghana. But along the line of trying to get policies in place to ensure more people get food, we as well instituted a program which we call the Food for All Ghana Feeding Program, where we, realizing the importance to which our government of Ghana attaches to school feeding, we started a program where in schools that are currently not under government of Ghana school feeding program, we created a system in place working with their school PTA, Parent Teacher Association. We started providing food for the students. And that has well created leverage for the work we do.
Yeah.
Not until Ghana, yes, not until Ghana recorded its first COVID cases last year, we had quite a challenge working smoothly with government, because when you talk about issues of social intervention, and trying to bring public and private stakeholders together. What the public sector is afraid of is the issue of tax incentives. And what the private sector wants when it comes to social intervention is that they want government to give them tax incentive for helping to support society. So we as NGOs, non-profits, most often than not, when we are in the middle of trying to get public and private sectors working together for the social good, it becomes quite challenging. However, when we recorded our first COVID cases in Ghana, and there was the need for the country to go on the national lockdown. And most of the public and private stakeholders saw the importance of the work that we do as social intervention initiatives.
I just want to round up with one final question. You awarded a Queen's Young Leaders Award by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II at Buckingham Palace. How did that come about?
Well, it was through the intervention programs that we were running. So when Her Majesty was on the throne celebrating her 60th Jubilee, she decided part of it was to recognize young people across the Commonwealth who were doing amazing things, things that she believes falls in line with the ideas of the Commonwealth. And so we were fortunate to be one of the recipients of that award. It served as a great privilege and platform for us to share with Her Majesty the Queen the work we do in Ghana and the vision we have for sub-Saharan Africa. Yes. It also served as a great opportunity for me. The funny thing about meeting Her Majesty the Queen was I was so confused on what to wear. On the day, I wanted to represent Ghana by wearing a traditional Ghanaian attire. But on the second thought, I thought my work as a chef and meeting this mentally challenged was what brought me to the Buckingham Palace. So it will be worth it if I represent by wearing my chef's jacket. I finally fell on the decision of wearing my chef's jacket to meet Her Majesty the Queen. And I believe Her Majesty was fascinated by seeing an African young chef in the palace who was there to receive an award. You know, it's quite uncommon to see chefs doing most connecting. We always made to believe that chefs are always supposed to be in the kitchen, especially in this part of our world. So that also created quite an amazing opportunity for me.
Yeah, so what's your hope, final question, what's your hope for the future? You know, you're doing all this wonderful thing, you're connecting so many people, giving them food, giving back to society. You know, you've seen there's still many challenges that lies ahead, especially not just in Ghana, but in Africa, across Africa, you know, across the continent, Africa itself. What will be your hope for the future?
An Africa without hunger, an Africa where we can connect excess food within our supply chain to those who don't have purchasing power. We live in a continent where we have a lot of food going waste along our food supply chain. If we can work together, both as developmental partners, both as private sector, both as public sector, and encourage initiatives that social connects to helping the vulnerable in society. I mean, I always tell people when I have the opportunity, look at the number of food banks we have in Europe. Look at the number of food banks we have in United States and other parts of the world. How many food banks do we have in sub-Saharan Africa? How many food banks? There's always the issue of Food banking system works perfectly in those settings comes up. I say until you come to the ground and see that same farmer, that same smallholder farmer who cultivates crops, doesn't get market for it, and so that food crops goes waste. Then they sleep on a hungry stomach. We can have a food banking system in sub-Saharan Africa that will serve as an avenue for such a farmer to bring what he has that he doesn't need in terms of food to get all the other food products that he needs. This can go a long way to help society.
Absolutely.
And that is the vision that I have. I'm never stopping. My team, we are never stopping until we see Africa having food banks that support the needy.
Chef Elijah Ador, this is truly amazing. I'm so grateful for your time, and I really applaud you with the work you're doing in Ghana and really across Africa, because I think so many people are looking at your work and also trying to replicate it in their own countries as well. Thank you so much, and keep doing what you're doing. And I'm sure people with the government will one day realize, and the private sector as well will also realize the importance of your work in helping to feed the millions of people who are starving out there. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, and please listen.
Thank you.